Feel free to add in the chat group if you're able to turn on your video. Okay, perfect. We see a few people coming on.
Yeah.
Awesome, welcome.
Excellent. Welcome, everybody. We'll maybe do a little informal chat for a couple of minutes, just till everyone gets online. We'll give people a couple more minutes in case there's any problems getting signed in or anything like that, which does happen periodically. At least it does to me. I guess my first thing is thank you all for joining us. We're really excited to have you here. This is one of those funny things where we're here to talk about planning, which some people think is kind of boring, and I think is actually kind of exciting because it's really about life, and it's about what are we going to do with our lives, and what are things going to look like? What do we want out of the world? And the politicians put together these processes that are, you know, sometimes make you think, oh my God, really? But really what it's about is, you know, what is your neighborhood going to look like? You know, are you going to have access to the things you want? Like, are you going to have good schools in your neighborhood? Are you going to have places to play, places to do sports? Are you going to have local theaters and museums and cafes and places to hang out with your friends? Are there going to be local sports places? And there are different people on different places on the political spectrum that have different ideas about what society should be and what it's going to look like. And those things often come to life in these planning processes. And the more people that are involved in them and engaged in them, the more likely that we're going to have a more robust and healthy city or community to live in. So really appreciate you guys being here today and for your interest in taking part in this process. My name is Paul Miro, and I'm the Executive Director of EcoSpark. Been at EcoSpark for a couple of years, and before that I worked with Amnesty International, with the Toronto Environmental Alliance, and for many years with Greenpeace. So I have a long history working for environmental protection and human rights, and the two of them go hand in hand, whether it's on a local level or an international level. When I was in school, I studied political science and have always had a strong kind of interested and desire in knowing more about our political systems and how they work and what we can do to engage in them and to actively push our governments to work on behalf of citizens to make sure that we have a healthy, sustainable environment to live in. So thank you all. I'm gonna let Sarah introduce herself.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Hello again, everyone. My name is Sarah Kuruvilla. I am the Citizen Science Assistant at EcoSpark. I'm mainly involved with the Greenbelt Youth Ambassador Program, but I also have a hand in various other programs, like our Sparking Science program, for example, in which grade 9 girls are introduced to different STEM fields and career paths. With my educational background, I was able to achieve my undergraduate in wildlife biology, and I did this back in the States, in Missouri. And then I came over to Canada, and I achieved an advanced diploma in ecosystem management technology at Fleming College in Peterborough. I'm not sure if many of you may be aware or not. Yeah, and that's about it for me. Since we are a relatively small group here today, I think it would be really nice if each of you just gave a quick introduction about yourselves. Nothing too fancy, so just maybe your name or your preferred name, what city you're calling in from, what school or university you're at. We have a mixture of senior high school students with us as well as university students. And then maybe also just let us know what program you're in or what program you're interested in getting in and why the interest. What is keeping you going? So I am just going to call out your names. I have a little list over here, so I'm just going to call out your names and you can unmute yourself. I guess my first name here is Allie. We have Allie here.
Hi, yeah, I'm Allie. I'm calling from Pickering. I go to the University of Guelph. I just finished my first year, and I'm in environmental engineering. It's interesting to me because I want to focus on sustainable development in the future.
Awesome, perfect. Thanks, Allie. Next on the list, we have Ben. Do we have Ben here? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I'm Ben from Toronto. I'm in grade 10 Monarch Park Collegiate. And like what kind of program I'd like to get into university.
Sorry, Ben, could you just repeat the last sentence you said? You're a bit unclear over there.
I said I'm from Toronto, Monarch Park Collegiate, grade 10. And I'm interested in psychology, but I got an invitation to this and I was interested in finding out more about this program, so yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben.
Ben, can you just tell me whereabouts is Monarch Park?
It's in East York, Toronto.
East York? Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, we have Lexi. Do you go by Lexi? Oh no, she's not here with us. Okay. Do we have Kaylee? Kaylee.
Yes, I'm Kaylee. So my name's Kaylee. I live in Whitby, but right now I'm up in Minden Hills for work. And next year I'm going to the University of Waterloo for planning.
Awesome. Thank you. Then we have Naya. Naya, you're up next.
I'm Naya. I'm calling from Pickering, and I'm in grade 12, and the program I'm interested in pursuing is social work.
Interesting. Thank you. Next we have Maliha.
Hi, I'm Maliha. I am currently a graduate from Dumbarton High School in Pickering. I'm planning on going to University of Toronto next year for international relations. I do a lot of work with Amnesty International, and I'm really interested in the connection between the environment and human rights.
Awesome. Thank you. We have Devin. You're up next.
Hi, my name is Devin. I just graduated from Dumbarton High School as well, and I'm planning to go to the University of Waterloo for Environment, Resource, and Sustainability.
Awesome, perfect. And lastly, we have Marissa, if I'm correct?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Marissa. I'm calling in from Toronto, but I'm actually from Indonesia. I go to the University of Toronto and I'm doing my master's on planning, and I'm currently doing a lot of things about grassroots groups. I'm interested what this will be. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so let's move on to what I like to call the main meat of today's webinar. I'll just quickly go over what exactly is the Greenbelt. I'm sure most of you may know, but
Sarah?
Yep. Hi, sorry, can everyone hear me? Is my internet a little unstable?
A little bit. And I was going to jump in and just tell folks a little bit about EcoSpark if they.
Oh, right.
Because I didn't do that at the beginning, but I thought it was better if we all have a chance to say hi and let people know who we are and stuff. So.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just going to back up a little bit and tell you about EcoSpark. EcoSpark is, community-based environmental group. We do a lot of work around citizen science. So we have programs. Well, I would say our reason for being is really about engaging citizens in environmental protection. And we started way back in the 1990s, probably 1996. At the time, there was a conservative government that was elected. They basically cut a lot of funding for environmental services around the province of Ontario. So they cut funding for conservation authorities. They rolled back environmental regulations. They really had a thinking process that was, our goal is to get businesses to happen and grow no matter what it takes. And we want to, we don't think the environment is really important. And if we eliminate all the people who are looking at environmental protection and monitoring what's happening, then we can just kind of open the doors for business to go out and do what they want. In an odd, quirk and weird way, they also are the government that brought in the regulations and developed the Greenbelt for Ontario, which is quite fascinating. But it was, I think, partly for them, they had a process or a belief that we needed to cut our costs as much as possible. And when you get into planning, you realize that, the more spread out things are, the more it costs to actually maintain the infrastructure. And if we can look at things like protecting and limiting the geographic areas, we can, put more people through density targets into smaller areas, and that is more cost effective, and it actually creates a healthier city. It means that you actually have more access to the services that citizens want, that you can make transit work, that you can actually have complete communities where people can live and work and play all in the same sort of area. So it was a really kind of fascinating thing. The conservative members of parliament around the entire Greater Golden Horseshoe basically lined up and supported this plan and launched the very first part of it. So EcoSpark at the time was formed by a group of scientists who were worried about the lack of environmental reporting. And so they set up a program where they started doing things like water monitoring, looking at what's going into our creeks and rivers. And since that time, we've developed a whole series of programs. We still do the water monitoring, but we're also doing programs called things like School Watch and Park Watch, where we teach citizens, whether they're students or community members, how to do monitoring of things like pollinators. We're currently working on a new program, which is the caterpillar count, looking at, what are the insects that we find in the city in certain places on certain trees. The more insects that we find, the more food that there are for birds. We're looking at things like potentially doing some air quality monitoring. We're looking at doing some mapping. There's some really, really great new tools out there for mapping. So if you're in school and you're taking geography, the old geography program is going to disappear fairly soon, and it's going to be replaced by some really fun and fascinating things. And there are some really, really great tools that have been built using maps that are going to help us in this project as we're looking at what's happening with the Greenbelt. The other side of EcoSpark's work over the last probably 5 to 10 years has been looking at the planning process. And so EcoSpark is a part of the Oak Ridges Moraine Coalition. We are part of the Save the Oak Ridges Moraine Coalition. We've been part of the Greenbelt Coalition. and basically have been working hard to make sure that people are getting out and expressing their voices on all the issues that impact us, because it's not just about, you know, containing cities, but it's also about creating healthy places, natural places that we can all get out and enjoy hikes and picnics and, you know, going canoeing and all the great outdoor activities that make us healthier people overall. So EcoSpark is really about engaging citizens in environmental protection and understanding that, what that means through the use of science. And yeah, so that's a little bit about EcoSpark and who we are. You can check out our website. There's lots more information up there, and feel free to ask questions at any point as well.
Perfect.
All right,
Thanks, Paul.
Sarah, back to you.
Back to me. Okay, this is very brief. I'm just going to mention what exactly the Greenbelt is. As I've stated before, if we're referring to just Southern Ontario's Greenbelt, we are talking about areas of highly protected farmland and natural spaces that are known to maintain the health of our local environment and our communities in general. So these protected lands, as Paul had mentioned, lies within the greater Golden Horseshoe area. I'm not sure how clear this image is for everyone, but just to spatially orient everyone, here we have Toronto. So down here we have the Peel region, so it would be Mississauga and so on. And then up here we have the Durham region, which would be Ajax, for example. Okay, so let me do a real switch. Okay, just for a deeper understanding of the Greenbelt, I highly recommend that everyone take a look at the materials that I've placed within the Google Classroom under Unit 1. I would like to direct you to this really awesome story map, it's called. It's very interactive and really, it's a new feature, so it's really cool to check out. Okay, so although I mentioned previously that the Greenbelt is a protected area, as Paul also mentioned, there are always threats being coming about from development and urban sprawl. So this is where the Greenbelt Youth Ambassador Program comes into play. At EcoSpark, we realize that youth in general are not being heard, particularly when it comes to any sort of planning for the future of the Greenbelt. So through the Greenbelt Youth Ambassador Program, EcoSpark will provide youth, such as all of you here today, with the resources to not only learn about what the Greenbelt is, but to actually experience the Greenbelt lands firsthand, and then to finally develop skills to become leaders in the environmental movement. Now, there are various ways in which the Greenbelt Youth Ambassador Program is able to achieve these different goals. So apart from participating in webinars such as this one, in our pre-COVID days, youth ambassadors were actually taken out on bus tours to various locations within the Greenbelt. So just to give an example of that, here we have some scenes from 2019 bus tours. So a couple of our students were able to visit a honeybee farm, for example. We were able to visit a rehabilitated gravel pit. And then we even got to have a private tour of the University of Toronto's Koffler Scientific Reserve. So it's very private property. Generally, not a lot of people are able to see behind the scenes, but we got to take a look at the latest research that is being done regarding the environment and climate change, for example. Okay, so I am just going to pass it back to Paul right now to talk about our current project, why we're here.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. So we are, you know, in an odd time right now. I guess all of you are kind of getting used to Zoom and Google Meets and all of these online different platforms as places to learn and to and to find out about what's going on and to participate in different events. Our goal is to try and find ways that we can actually get out and do things and interact and to enjoy the world around us. And the funny thing is, in the middle of this whole process, our government decided that given that people are a little bit distracted and not necessarily paying attention to what they're doing, that this would be a good time to update the planning processes that all the cities in the Greater Golden Horseshoe use for making their long-term plans. And, you know, there's the cynic in me that says, well, you know, there's an old saying that people used to use that they probably still do, which is don't let a good crisis go to waste. And the Ontario government, the Conservatives, have been trying to find ways to undo some of the stuff that their predecessors have done. And one of the big things that they did was they protected this area called the Greenbelt. And they protected it for, you know, the reasons that I talked about earlier, but also because it's really important for the Greater Golden Horseshoe in terms of doing clean, like filtering our water, filtering the air, helping keep the city cooler from climate change, providing local food sources. One thing that a lot of people don't know is the area around the city of Toronto and throughout, well, the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Greenbelt is the best farmland that we have in the country. So it's better than the farmland on the provinces, like out in the prairies, which is the breadbasket, you know, but which is great for growing certain things, but not other things. And the Greenbelt, we grow all kinds of fresh fruits and vegetables. We've got a wine industry. You know, there's all kinds of stuff that provides food for the local, for our, well, puts the food on our plates and stuff, as well as protecting our air and water. So the government is looking at, okay, well, what can we do here? And part of it is understanding why. And one of the things that you're going to learn in the whole world of planning is one of the first questions that everybody asks is, who is going to benefit from this update? And it's an important question to ask because if our politicians are supporting the people of the region, then we should make sure that the policies that they're putting in place are actually going to support the people in the long term. But in this case, a lot of what's happening is they're looking to roll back the density targets, so make it so that less people can live in the region, or we're going to have more people live in the region, but we're going to take up a bunch of that farmland and natural area to house people. And they're doing it because there's a bunch of developers who have bought land in the areas that they want to include into the plan, and they're looking to make some money. It's not necessarily that they're looking to build better cities or anything. They're basically, they want to build big houses on big lots so that they can make the most money possible from their investment. So for us, it's looking and saying, well, what are the pieces of the plan that are going to actually impact us, and how are they going to impact us? So for the folks who are out in Durham region, there's the Carruthers Creek, and the Toronto Region Conservation Authority has just finished a new watershed plan for Carruthers Creek. And this is going to be an upcoming issue that we're going to look at. It's a fascinating one. The regional government there asked to have an environmental assessment done. The city of Pickering would like to expand and build new neighborhoods on about 4,000 hectares of land. And the folks living in Ajax are saying we'd rather keep that as a natural area. So there are debates happening within the region about how and what is going to be developed and where. We also know that York region is working on updating their official plan and looking at what the region is going to look like in developing. And that's just kind of north of the city of Toronto. So it includes places like Markham and King City, all the way up to Simcoe. So that whole area north of the city. So that's another area that we're going to have to look at and look at how we can have a say in it. Sarah, if you want to flip to the next section. So our first, well, I added one more picture to this, but that's okay, it's fine. So our first order of business is the update to the A Place to Grow growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, which the government announced about a week and a half ago. And we have 45 days to put together a response to it. And that response will go through a process called the Environmental Bill of Rights plan or act. And so we will work on, going through this and trying to figure out what it is that the government is trying to accomplish, and then commenting on that and figuring out how to push them to actually not follow through on that or make changes that are going to be better for all of us and for the future ahead of us. So that's called the ERB submission. And it's great to do a submission. We're going to walk through it. We have some really, we've got good speakers that are going to come and help us look at it. We actually have on the EcoSpark board one of the people that wrote the Carruthers Creek Watershed Plan, who is going to help us out a bit. And essentially, we're going to kind of go through it and say, what is this going to mean for our future? What is it going to look like? And what do we want to say to our politicians about it? But the other thing is, it's not just good to send off a submission to the government. Lots of people do it, and lots of times people walk away feeling frustrated and ignored because the government gets all kinds of submissions and they try and look and see which ones are important to them or which ones aren't. So the other challenge for us is how are we going to get out and take this out to the local politicians who actually have a say in whether or not this is going to go through or not. And that means figuring out how we can talk to our families, how we can talk to our friends, what we can do to put pressure on the government. So that's something that I want you guys to think about over the next, probably over the next week, and then look at, as part of our work, what sort of plans can we have in place to let people know and to look at, who do we get to sign on to our submission. The other image that I had that isn't up here is a submission that EcoSpark was part of, and we did it with some allies. So with On Nature, with Save the Oak Ridges Moraine, with Environmental Defense. And there's strength in numbers. And what we should be thinking about as we're going through this process is, how do we get this out to youth across the Greater Golden Horseshoe and look at, are there places and people that we can get to sign on as part of our submission? So, can we get 20 people to sign on with us? Can we get 40 people? Can we get 100 people or 1,000 people? And the more people that are signing on, the government knows, the more people know about it and the greater impact that it potentially has. So I'm going to just pause there for a second and see if anybody has any questions about what our goals are and what we're hoping to achieve.
You can
I
always
think,
feel free to use the chat room if any of you do want to speak up, but or you can turn on your video. It's completely open to you guys.
okay, I might just pick on people and work my way around the room. Allie, what are you hoping to get out of your work with us?
So right now I'm doing research on groundwater protection in Indigenous communities in Canada, the United States, Australia, and New Zealand is the area that we're looking at, but mainly focusing on an Indigenous nation on the Bruce Peninsula. And I think it'd be really interesting to see how this kind of impacts them, possibly, and other areas within the Golden Horseshoe, just because there are a lot of different Indigenous nations in the GTA that aren't really recognized and do have poor drinking water quality and things like that. So I think it's really interesting to see how this ties in with the government's plan maybe to remove all of the drinking water advisories in that 5-year deadline that they gave. So that's kind of what interested me to join in on this, but yeah.
Yeah. So Allie, we've got some really great maps that lay out the watersheds. And right now, I don't know that we have any layers that look at First Nations within the Greater Golden Horseshoe, but that would be a really important thing for us to look at. And if we can find some youth from First Nations that would be interested in signing on to the response, or even helping us as we're forming the response, that would be great. Ben, I'm going to pick on you next.
Okay. Well, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to get out of it, but I wanted to find more out about it by joining this, and sort of what kind of activity, what sort of the practical effect, like what you guys do out, or I don't know. I wasn't exactly. Well, I'm interested in reserving the environment in local areas, and I just wanted to find more out about it. That's why I joined this, basically.
Yeah. So Ben, you're also interested in psychology, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, that's what I want to get into. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that fascinates me about growth or about planning. It's like the psychology behind it, and so understanding, who is this for and why is it happening, and hopefully as we go through this, you'll be able to see a little bit about that as well, and how that connects with the types of policies that are put in place and the impact that those policies have. One of the big things that's happening with COVID-19 is, a lot of people are becoming much more aware of the importance of having natural areas around, so that people can get out and walk in, play in the parks or walk in the woods or whatever, and the positive impacts that has on our mental well-being. So I think you'll find there's going to be some interesting stuff in this process that you'll be able to combine those two interests together, I think. Kaylee, you're up next.
Yeah, sorry, my computer and everything was just frozen.
Yeah.
I'm interested in becoming participating in this because I'm very interested in political advocacy. I was part of a program called Sustainable Durham that basically I was able to start with a few other youth, and we found the most effective way to get actual progress being done is you need to engage with local politicians and community members. And my MPP and my MP right now are both conservative. And so I feel like I need to do a lot of advocacy around climate change and stuff like that, because that's something that's very important to me and my family, and not necessarily something that I really see being reflected in my community or by the people representing me in government.
Great. You know, this sounds weird, but I kind of, I'm in a place where, so I live out in the High Park, Bloor West Village area, and we have an NDP member of provincial parliament. And she is so in line with my thoughts and feelings on so many of these issues that it's like, oh, I could call Butilla, but she already knows and she's already working on it. So there's a part of me which is like, I wish I had a conservative I could go and say, hey, come on, like, get with the program. But anyways, that's okay. It's great if you're out there, and maybe we can get you to take on some of the role of, you know, working to help people learn about what it takes to go and talk to your local MP or MPP, and to write some letters and things that we can be sending off. So really glad to have you with us. I have Naya next.
I wanted to join this program because I'm a very strong believer that you should be the change you want to see. And I am very aware of environmental issues, and I think that it's important to get the message out there, because a lot of the times people aren't doing anything because they don't know about it. So I think if we can get out things that we need to change, then that would be great.
Super. Thank you, Naya. I agree 100%. I think that's, you know, the reason that governments launch these types of processes in the middle of another crisis is because they mostly don't want people to know. And as you get a little older and a little wiser, you're going to notice that often governments make announcements on the Friday afternoon before a long weekend, because they know everybody is, their heads are like, I'm going to a cottage, I'm going camping, I'm getting out of the city, I'm going to go meet friends for drinks or something. And so people aren't paying attention. And they, you know, they take advantage of that. So I think you've really nailed the, or hit the nail on the head there in, they don't want people to know sometimes. And it's really important for us to figure out how to get that message out. Malia.
Hi, I was interested in this because I believe that the environment can have a massive positive effect on the well-being of a community as a whole. And reserving as much of the environment as we can helps improve the living conditions of everyone, especially when it comes to clean water and air supply, as Ali mentioned earlier, with the indigenous communities. I think that we do need to get the message out, like Naya said, when it comes to places that definitely need help when it comes to their environment, and we can just bring awareness to our own environment as well.
Great, absolutely. Devin.
Hey, so I'm interested in this program because I think that environmental rights and human rights are something that can coexist together, and they can improve the growth of everyone, especially when it comes to indigenous land rights and land ownership and stuff like that. And with the Greenbelt, helping preserve like the prime farmland of the country. I think that's something that's really important, because we should start moving towards looking at sustainable living for everyone, and not just looking at the money that's involved with it, because I know that a lot of the governments right now are just focusing on money and the economy and stuff, but we should be focusing on sustainability and more environmentally friendly ways of living on this planet, internationally, locally, as a nation. So yeah, that's kind of why I'm interested in joining this.
Great. It is really important. And I think, you know, for all of us to keep in mind that even the conservatives understand a lot of that. Again, I'm a bit older than the rest of you guys, maybe some of you all added together in your ages, but there's a former Prime Minister of Canada, Brian Mulroney, who today has a piece in the Globe and Mail about the need for Canada to address the problems with the way we have treated our First Nations for so many generations, and that as we are looking at, you know, getting back to the normal, or whatever that, you know, the better new normal, whatever people are calling it, that the only way we're going to do that is by really making sure that we're addressing issues such as First Nations rights to the land, their ability to have a say in what happens on the land, and that we have to take all these reports that we've written over the decades and just put on shelves to collect dust, and we actually have to start implementing them and get back to, well, actually get to work at saying, you know what, we need to have a respect. If we don't respect each other, and we don't, then we're probably not going to respect the environment either. And they really do go hand in hand. And we're in this opportune time where the world is kind of going, okay, we need to rethink the way we're doing things, because as good as things have been on many, many fronts, we've fallen down on many others. And things like climate change, we really, really, really need to get our act together. And, you know, it's unfortunate that in Ontario, the Conservative government is not pushing to do more on climate change, but I think this is a part of what we have to be doing, is pushing them to incorporate climate change and respect for First Nations into all of our policies. So really great. Thank you. Marissa, you're the last one on the list.
Hi, I mean, a lot of things has been said already, but I think an important part is the voices of people are actually really, really useful and really heard. Given that I've been working with a lot of how grassroots leaders are really important in these things, I think it'll be interesting if we can gather a lot of people from the community that already know about this together in this program. I think in planning, it sounds boring, as you said, but I found a niche where in planning there is an importance in getting communities that are already involved in a bigger picture. So I really hope everything you said is great, and I think that we all have communities and networks that we can join in and help in this program. Yeah, but yeah, that's all I can say.
Great. Yeah, no, I do not think planning is boring.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's one of those funny things. If somebody said to you, you know, oh, you get to go on a trip anywhere you want in the world. First, you have to plan it, and you said, forget it. It's boring planning. I'm not going to do it. You probably wouldn't have a great trip, right? You might get on a plane, you might show up somewhere, but you wouldn't know, you know, what are the interesting things to see? Who should I go and try and talk to? What are the, you know, what are the things that make this place special? And so that is a part of planning. It's, you know, figuring out what do we want? What do we want to see? What do we want to do? And how do we make sure we've got what we need to do it? So anyways, thank you all for your input. I am excited to work with you guys and for us to make a difference in the greater Golden Horseshoe. So
yeah. Just to also just quickly add, in the chat group, I've just added a link to a site called Native Lands. It is actually a site that I had come across during my time in college, and I found it really useful because it's a map that has been formed by Indigenous peoples, and it marks the different territories that a lot of nations have claim over, rights over. So just thought a useful resource to share, because I found it really, really amazing, and it's an amazing map as well. So highly encourage everyone to look at it. Okay, thank you, Paul, and thank you everyone. That was really engaging. It's really awesome to see all the different interests, but yet the shared commonality of our, you know, of our need to protect what we love. Just to let everyone know, in case if you didn't want to ask any more questions here, but you still had something that will come up in your mind later on, Within the Google Classroom, there is a section known as meeting takeaway notes. This is, within this, there is a shared Google Doc where everyone has access to. So maybe you have a new resource you recently came across, or you have some thoughts that you'd like to share. Feel free to just throw that in that document, and you know, sort of a way to for you guys to have a conversation with us, and we can just keep that conversation going through the days as well. So highly recommend for everyone to go in there and just whatever you may think this even through this webinar or even for the future. And we are at the very end of this webinar. Thank you so much.
I have a few more words to say.
Yeah, I was actually going to throw the ball back in your court because
Okay.
I know you have some lasting good words.
This is one of my problems, is I always have more to say. Our next, can you go back one screen?
Oh, sure. Okay.
So our next webinar is on Thursday, and we're going to have Victor Boyle come in and talk to us. Now, Victor Boyle, I don't know if any of you have clicked on the link that was in the notes about this meeting, but or is it in the next meet? I don't. Sarah, do you know if they've seen the link yet or not?
The link to Victor Boyle's notes?
To the little blurb about him on the Environmental Defense website.
Oh no, I'm yet to put that up actually. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. All right. So Victor Boyle. Yeah. Victor Boyle, he was one of the people that wrote the original Greenbelt plan to protect the Greenbelt and to set it aside. He's been working for a variety of governments since way back at the time of Mike Harris and even before Mike Harris. And he retired from the government in the last couple of years. He has spoken out very strongly about what the Greenbelt is for and why we need to protect it. And the current Ford government basically were punishing him for speaking out as a provincial planner because he disagreed with the direction that the government wanted to go in. So I highly recommend that you check out the article on his background on the Environmental Defense website. We will share that link with you. He is going to, at the next webinar, kind of walk us through the history of the Greenbelt. What was behind the creation of the Greenbelt, what has happened over the last 25 years, a bit of his vision probably for where he would like to see the Greenbelt grow, and what we can do to further protect it. And to help us identify, what are the key areas that we should be looking at as we're looking to respond to this. And we are going to, in our supporting documents, we're going to put some extra materials in there that will include things like sample responses to Environmental Bill of Rights comment options. And we're going to share some work that we did before. We actually have a Greenbelt Youth Charter. And what I would love to hear from you guys is what types of communication tools are you using these days with your friends and peers? And your thoughts on what we can do to make sure that we're not just writing up a submission and sending it in, but we're looking at, how do we get as much support for this, and how do we actually make sure that people know about it? So this is a really, really important thing, and we're in a very odd time. So what sorts of tools and things do you think would be helpful to help you share information about this? When you are looking at the supporting documents, you'll see that we have what's called a map story that talks about the Greenbelt and what Greenbelts are. There's a map story on, the tours that we did the last time. We would be thrilled to do a map story as part of this project about, what it is that why are we submitting the response that we are, and what are the key issues that we're looking at, and then figuring out how to share it. So those things are really, really important, and our goal is to make as many people know about this and speak up and to really push to say, we need sustainability now. This is not the time to, essentially go back to where we were before 1996 as an approach to how we plan our world and our future. So anyways, if you guys have thoughts or ideas on that, in the Google Classroom, again, Sarah, if you want to go back, there's meeting takeaway notes.
Yeah.
And please feel free to go in and add anything you want to that. If there are certain resources you would like that you feel like these would be good resources to share with the whole group, let us know. You can email them to Sarah, and we'll add them up on the board, and we'll start putting together some stuff to help you organize some of the work that we're doing. So I'd like to just give you all, a minute to maybe express your final thoughts on the process and any resources or things that you would like to add and share with everyone else. So I'm going to go through the list again and make you all talk, just because that's kind of who I am. So Allie, I'm going to go the other way. Marissa, you get to go first this time.
You caught me lost on words. What was the question?
Do you have any materials or thoughts on what you would like to see us do, or things that you think would help us as we work through this project?
I think if there's a way we could always share ideas, that's a start. Like a open Google Doc where we can share maybe community knowledges that we have that could add. I think that's a good idea, because I think projects like these, the momentum in each community is different, and knowing that would be great. But that's like my one idea.
Okay. Devin.
I think that maybe if we could partner with Fridays for Future Toronto, or their sub organization Green Teens Toronto, which just started up a couple weeks ago that I'm also a part of. It's a bunch of kids around the senior high school and university age, and they're all passionate about political advocacy for climate change and things like that. So I think that they would also be extremely interested in helping this program, and also pooling our resources and our ideas together. We could really get somewhere. We could really get to a good place in the next couple of years with the Ontario government and with our local MPs. So yeah.
Excellent. I might ask you to put a note in the meeting takeaway notes, and maybe start doing some outreach and see if in 3 or 4 weeks, when we've got a pretty good draft, if we could, well, actually, maybe if you could do some conversations with them between now and then, and maybe we could get them to sign on as a supporting group. That would be great. Okay, Malia.
I would say definitely partner up with different organizations, really youth-led organizations, not even just environmental, maybe like human rights organizations that would be interested in this as well, and create like key concerns within the Google Docs so that we can put resources for each concern so that it's like more organized.
Okay. So Sarah, I think we should set up a potential partners doc.
Okay, yeah.
And then we can get you guys to start adding names to that. Thank you very much, Malia. Naya.
I agree with what everyone else was saying, that we should probably partner with other groups like us so that we can communicate with other like-minded individuals so that we can I think it's gonna help us progress more if we have like more ideas and from different perspectives. So
Okay. Kaylee.
So what I think might be helpful kind of to engage youth, if we're trying to get more people to sign on to what we're saying, is maybe to create some information that is kind of more digestible, that we might be able to put out on social media or give to groups that we're looking at, because I know I was trying to read everything and it's just a lot of like kind of political blah. So I was actually had something that people could understand. We might have more people, number one, concerned about what's going on, but number two, actually be willing to sign on because they're actually confident in what they are agreeing to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you almost, when you read these documents, you almost need a translator that takes this, information that is written in a way that is often supposed to glaze over important issues so that people don't even realize what they're talking about, and make it so that it's like meaningful. So totally, maybe looking at some memes or something to bring out when they say this, they mean that, or, yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
Funny enough, that was
Ben?
the first conversation Paul and I had when we came across the documents. We need to make this more digestible because we don't understand a lot of it.
Yes. We have some experts that we'll bring in to help us figure out what they're actually trying to say, for sure. And then it's for us to take it, say, okay, if this is really what they're trying to say, what does that mean? And what do we want? And then how do we get that out there far and wide to make people aware? So absolutely. Ben.
Yeah, I think it's important to, like everyone else has said, partner with youth organizations that are interested in this sort of thing, because recently people have been, not everyone, but a lot of people are more interested in the voices of people that will be most affected by environmental issues. So yeah, I don't know about specific organizations yet. I haven't done all that research, but I will. And yeah, so I'm just interested in conserving the immediate environment around Toronto and stuff like that, because I don't want to see it go. I don't want to see it recede and be taken over by other corporations and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Super. Okay. And Ali, you get the final word. Wait, Ali's gone.
Oh, that's true.
I thought she was just there and then she snuck away. Oh, well, that's okay. We'll get her the next time. Okay. Sarah, do you have any final words?
No, just a big thank you to everyone for joining us for today and participating in this. I would love it if everyone got to fill out that registration form I sent in the first email. Just going back to what Paul had said, it actually helps us just to understand you guys better and to see what we can provide you guys with the best resources and the best possible contacts as well. So if you could fill out that registration form, That would be amazing. But that's about it. Yes, that's all from me, Paul.
Great. Okay, well, thank you all so much for your interest and for joining us today. I really hope we will see you all again on Thursday. I think we're going to have a good conversation with Victor. We have booked an hour. Victor, I have not actually heard him present before. I'm hoping that he'll be able to we'll be able to maintain our timeline. He might go over a little bit, so just as you're booking your time for Thursday, think, well, we might be a little bit longer. If you do need to leave right at 3 o'clock, don't worry, just log out and we will be doing some recordings of our sessions, and so we will share that. And so if there's something that you miss, you can go from there. But thank you all for your participation today, and we will be in touch again very soon.
Okay.
We'll say goodbye for now.
Goodbye, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. See you on Thursday.
Bye, Marissa.
Thank you. See you on Thursday. Bye.